As in fact, millions, I believe, at least hundreds of thousands of other Canadians are right now, I'm, as a law-abiding firearms owner, digesting the announcement that the Prime Minister of Canada just made with regard to firearms confiscation. And for those of you who aren't law-abiding firearms owners in Canada, I want to explain to you what Justin Trudeau just did. So he just, with the stroke of a pen, essentially made me and hundreds of thousands of other Canadians criminals by saying that even though we jumped through all of the hoops, the super strict vetting, all of the stringent laws that Canada have to legally own this property and use it under very strict circumstances, very tight storage guidelines, that is wrong. And that so people, I guess, just point number one, he did this under the guise of making Canadians more safe. And I want to get to that. But the current leader of my party, Andrew Scheer, just issued a statement on this matter, and I want to read it all to you and then kind of say where I think we go from here. So this just came out. The Honourable Andrew Scheer, leader of Canada's Conservatives and official opposition, issued the following statement on the Liberals' firearms regulations. Justin Trudeau is using the current pandemic and the immediate emotion of the horrific attack in Nova Scotia to push the Liberals' ideological agenda and make major firearms policy changes. That is wrong. The Trudeau Liberals have made it clear throughout this crisis that they do not respect the democratic role of Parliament. That cannot continue. If the Prime Minister has the strength of his convictions, he should wait until the health crisis has passed and introduce legislation in the House of Commons so that it can be debated and Canadian voices can be heard. Canadians are rightly upset by the horrific attack in Nova Scotia and want answers. As the RCMP investigations unfold, it is essential that we learn why a province-wide alert was not immediately issued, if the RCMP officers had proper body armor, and whether or not there were any red flags that could have prevented this tragedy. As the RCMP has made clear, the Nova Scotia shooter did not have a firearms license, so all of his guns were illegal. Taking firearms away from law-abiding citizens does nothing to stop dangerous criminals who obtain their guns illegally, as the Nova Scotia shooter did. The reality is the vast majority of gun crimes are committed with illegally obtained firearms. Nothing the Trudeau Liberals announced today addresses this problem. Conservatives have and always will support common sense firearms policies that keep guns out of the hands of dangerous criminals. And then he goes on to talking about some of the items that we'll continue to press for that will actually address firearms violence, which is a very important issue. So what has happened today? He's announced that over 1,500 different firearms are essentially now illegal in Canada. Do not pass go. We don't have details of if there's a buyback under this or how much that will cost. And frankly, just to underscore what Andrew Scheer said, this should have been done in Parliament. This is government confiscating property from legal owners for no good reason. There is no data. There is no data that shows that what he did today is going to have any impact whatsoever on firearms violence in Canada, because we know that the vast overwhelming amount of guns that are used in firearms related crime in Canada are illegally smuggled from the United States. Nothing that he announced today is going to do that. All he did was criminalize anybody who owns one of these 1,500 different models. The other thing that happened is I want you to think a minute about, for example, I have a firearms manufacturer in Calgary. It's a family-owned business that has been producing firearms legally under strict circumstances and providing jobs for my community for a long period of time. Justin Trudeau, with the stroke of a pen, with no debate of Parliament, put them out of business today, in the middle of a pandemic, while we're locked down with no Parliament happening. That's what dictators do. Look, if I had any indication, or any of you, anybody in the firearms community that legally owns firearms, anybody who, if we had any indication that there were gaps in existing firearms laws that would have prevented some of these tragedies, we'd be on top of it. But the reality is that it's the opposite. We know that these firearms are obtained illegally. They're not obtained through the current system. So how is today going to change the situation? Do you think criminals are all of a sudden going to, like, you know, a gang member in Toronto is going to suddenly give up their firearms because of this? No, of course not. This goes... I have a call to action for you. First of all, so you're going to ask, well, what are we doing as conservatives? Well, first of all, speaking out. This is wrong. It's wrong. This is an abrogation of democracy. And regardless of what side you take on this issue, you should be very concerned that the Prime Minister of Canada just turned millions of Canadians into criminals with no evidence to justify that the expensive confiscation program that he just put in place is going to have any impact on reducing firearms violence in Canada. He just put billions of dollars of manufacturing business out of business in Canada. You should be concerned about that. It shouldn't have happened this way. It should have gone through Parliament. So we'll continue to speak out. I have a question as a firearms owner and a Conservative Party member to all of the leadership candidates. Would you repeal this if you became the leader of the Conservative Party? I would hope that you would take a position that stood on behalf of public safety and law-abiding firearms owners and said that this is ridiculous and this is a measure that is not going to put any Canadian safety, and start talking about what you would do differently. Now I'm going to look at all of you who have been calling my office, calling other people's office, sitting there, and especially the hunters who thought that this would never happen to you. Remember we said that it wasn't just going to be about 9 guns, it was going to be a lot more. Well, that happened today. You all need to get on the phone right now, and if you have never called a member of Parliament today, you need to look up a Liberal MP, especially Liberal MPs in rural ridings. You need to get on the phone with a Liberal MP, call all of them if you can, and tell them what this means to you. Say that if they care about firearms violence, they'll understand that what they did today is they're criminalizing law-abiding Canadians as opposed to making Canada safe. The tragedy that happened in Nova Scotia is heart-wrenching. It is disgusting. There are elements of domestic violence and misogyny to it. There are so many things that need to be unpacked. We do know that the firearms that were used were obtained illegally. So how is today's announcement going to solve that? And to not have an answer to that question is politics at its worst. Get on the phone and phone a Liberal MP, share this video. I'll have more to say once I digest the full list and the full ramification of this, but I'll continue to speak up. But today I'm a member of the community and I'm using my platform to speak up on behalf of it. And I'm also speaking on behalf of Canadians who deserve better in terms of adequate measures to prevent firearms violence. Get on the phone, phone a Liberal MP. Working hard for you. Have a great day.